Dear friends, welcome to Think BRICS. Today we are joined by Virdika Rizky Utama, or Virdi, as he commonly known, an Indonesian political researcher and author who brings a fascinating perspective to contemporary Indonesian politics. Virdi is the executive director at Para Syndicate, member of the Global South Forum, and he has authored several books, including his notable work on Gus Dur, the fourth president of Indonesia. Virdi regularly contributes to major publications and offers unique insights into Indonesia's evolving political landscape. Virdi, welcome to the
Hello.
show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me, Anastasia. It's a great honor for me.
Thank you. Well, Indonesia officially became a member of BRICS in January 2025. We made a successful video about it, and I invite you all to watch it. The link is in the description. So, this move represents a significant shift in Indonesia's foreign policy, positioning as it seeks to diversify its international partnerships beyond traditional Western alliances. Um, what do people in Indonesia think about their country being part of BRICS group? Do people see it as a good thing, or there are worries about it being connected to China or and Russia? What's your personal vision?
Oh, thank you. That's very interesting question, I think. And I think to answer it properly, we need to spread different layers of Indonesian society. Actually, if we start from the broader public, that's what is that break is not something people really think about in their daily lives. Most Indonesians are concerned about food prices, education for their children, and also job vacancy. So Greek is still quite far from their immediate reality, but whenever it comes up in the media, it is usually framed positively. People the idea that Indonesia is recognized as important enough to be invited into a big group, that we are not just a follower but a player in the global politics. It fits into the sense of pride, of course, that Indonesia is rising. At the same time, you know that there are always quite concerns. Some Indonesian, especially those who are more political aware, will say, "Wait, isn't BRICS too strongly associated with China and Russia that you already mentioned?" And given today's geopolitical context, that raises legitimate questions that Indonesia has always tried to avoid being pulled into great power rivalries. So for many, the worry is not about BRICS in principle, but about whether membership might compromise our independence or complicate our relations with other partners, particularly the United States, Japan, and also or even ASEAN neighbors. So if we move to the elite level, the pictures gets more layered. Diplomats, bureaucrats, academics, they see join BRICS is the opportunity, but they are also cautious. On the one hand, BRICS overall alternative financing through the NDB, New Development Bank, and potentially cooperation in infrastructure, digital economy, and also the energy. And of course, those are attractive. On the other hand, frankly speaking, some quietly question whether BRIC is really about collective global South interest or more about the strategic ambitions of Beijing and Moscow. There's a very concern, I think, and it shows that Indonesians are not naive. So actually, this debate is not new. Since 1945, Indonesian foreign policy has been guided by the principle of bebas aktif, which is independent and active. Independence means not tied to any single bloc, and active means contributing to global peace and justice. This principle was burned during the Cold War, but it remains very relevant today for Indonesia. So, when Indonesians discuss BRICS, the question is always filtered through this lens. Will BRICS help us stay independent and active, or will it limit our space? So, in my opinion, there is where ambivalence lies. On one hand, BRICS BRICS could give Indonesia another platform to voice issues that matter for the global south, such as climate change, for security, development, financing. Uh, these are all areas where Indonesia has credibility and strong interest. On the other hand, there is the risk that BRICS simply become a stage for a few major powers while others are sidelined. Indonesia are aware of that, and they don't want to be trapped in someone else's geopolitical agenda. So, frankly speaking, Indonesians are pragmatic. They don't really care about the abstract rhetoric. If BRIC can bring tangible benefit, funding for green energy, scholarship for students, investment in infrastructure, then people will see it positively. But if it stays as political symbolism, then the skepticism will remain. So, my personal vision is that Indonesia should approach BRICS with open eyes. It should not be romanticized as a new champion of global South, because in reality, it is a coalition of very different countries with their own agendas. So, but it should not be dismissed either, because, in my opinion, the world is becoming more multipolar, and Indonesia must be part of those shifts. So, for me, the best approach is pragmatic. Use BRICS to advance our development priorities. Use it to amplify our voice on reforming global governance, but always keep our independence intact.
Independent.
So that way, Indonesians stays through its history of bebas active or independent active, while also adapting to the realities of a changing world.
Thank you. So Indonesia has very pragmatic stance towards BRICS. You told free and active foreign policy, bebas active. In your opinion, how can Indonesia benefit from BRICS without losing its independence? So
Uh, Yeah, that's a crucial questions, and actually, it goes straight to the heart of Indonesian foreign policy identity. So, since independence, like I've mentioned you before, "Bebas Aktif" has been more just a slogan. It has been a compass that guides how Indonesian position itself between the great powers. Like I've mentioned earlier, independent means not being bound to any single bloc, and active means we contribute to world peace and justice. So that principle was burned during the Cold War, when Indonesia had to navigate between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. So, and if you look at today's multipolar world, the logic surprisingly similar. We are once again surrounded by competing power centers, and Indonesia has to find its space carefully. So now the questions of BRICS is interesting because it sits right at the intersection of the opportunity and risks. I see that on the one hand, BRICS presents a real opportunity. The NDB is often mentioned, and for good reason. Indonesia has enormous infrastructure needs, and traditional financing from the IMF or World Banks often comes with conditionalities that don't always fit our domestic priority. And if BRICS can provide alternative funding with more flexibility, that is clearly beneficial. Uh, and beyond finance, I think there are also possibility in energy cooperations, digital economy, health, and even agricultural resilience. So these are not abstract. They speak directly to Indonesia's development agenda. But honestly, I see the risks are also clear. BRICS is often perceived, rightly or wrongly, as heavily influenced by China and Russia, and for Indonesia, being seen as aligning too closely with either of them would contradict our identity and complicate relations with partners like the US, Japan, Australia, and the European Union, for sure. And because Indonesians diplomacy thrive on balance, this is where cautions come in. So how do we benefit without losing our independence? In my opinion, The key is diversifications and agenda setting. Indonesia should enter BRICS with a clear sense of what it wants, not just a passive participant. For example, instead of letting China or Russia set the tone, Indonesia can push issues that resonate with the global south more broadly. Climate change, food security, and inclusive digital development. These are areas where we already have credibility, and by leading on them, Indonesia, I think, can shape the agenda rather be shaped by it. And actually, Indonesia has some comparative advantages here. We are not a nuclear power. We are not a permanent member of the UN Security Council, and we are not seen as revisionist states. That makes us, I think, less threatening and more credible as bridge builder. And so Indonesia's strength in BRIC is not hard power, but in soft power. That's the ability to bring legitimacy of a global South issue. By leaning on that, and I think we maximize benefit while reducing dependency. So another practical step is to make sure BRICS complements rather than replaces our platforms. In my opinion, and also Indonesians think that ASEAN remains Indonesia's cornerstone. The G20 remains important for us. Our ties with the West remain valuable. And if BRIC is framed as one additional platform in a wider diplomatic mosaic, then the risk of over dependence is minimized. So this also send a message that Indonesia is in BRICS, but Indonesia is not of BRIC exclusively. I think that that no one's matters. So honestly, Indonesians are very sensitive to anything that smell like dependency. Our historical memory of colonialism and also intervention is very strong. So if brick is used pragmatically, like I've mentioned to you before, like to gain resources, to voice global perspective, to widen our diplomatic network, it will be welcome. But if it is seen as trying us to a new bloc dominated by big powers, then I think, and I'm pretty sure that the public and the elite will resent.
Okay, I see. Interesting. Um, from our perspective, outside your country, we saw President Prabowo's strong commitment to strategic foreign policy activities, especially within BRICS. But in your East Asia Forum
Yes.
piece, you argue that Indonesia's foreign policy under him is all style, no substance. What examples made you come to this conclusion?
That's a very fair questions, and actually, it allows me to clarify what I meant. When I wrote at the Asia Forum that Prabowo's foreign policy so far looks like all style, no substance, I was not dismissing the importance of his activities for sure. On the contrary, I acknowledge that he has been very energetic. In just 6 months, he has visited Beijing, Washington, Moscow, Ankara, Cairo, and Rio de Janeiro. I see this shows ambition and style in diplomacy does matter. The problem, in my opinion, is uh, that the activity hasn't yet been grounded in a clear framework of what Indonesia wants to achieve. Uh, Take the case of BRICS. Joining BRICS could be an important step to diversify Indonesia's partnership and also strengthen our presence in the global south. However, the announcement came without a roadmap. What sector will Indonesia push? How will BRICS connect with our development agenda? I think these questions remain unanswered, so the decisions look strong symbolically, and but it's risks being seen as gesture driven rather than a substance driven. So now I can give you another example in ASEAN. Traditionally, ASEAN has been Indonesia's anchor in regional diplomacy, but under Prabowo, the rhetoric about ASEAN centrality is still there. But his diplomatic energy so far has been directed more toward bilateral visits and global forums. That gives impressions that ASEAN is being sidelined. Again, this may not be his intention, but without concrete policies to strengthen ASEAN role, the balance looks uneven. And perhaps the most striking example, as I argue in my article in the Asia Forum, was the silence of the 70th anniversary of Bandung conference. So for Indonesia, Bandung was not just history; it was identity, a moment when Indonesia led the formerly colonized world in articulating a vision beyond global Cold War binaries. So sorry. To let pass without recognition suggested worrying, rooted from traditions of bebas active, and I think from the idea that diplomacy should be anchored in principle as well as interests. So honestly, I don't say this suggests that Pablo cannot change course. Foreign policy always takes time to mature, for sure. He's only at the start of his presidency, and there is room for a more coherent vision to emerge. Nevertheless, at this early stage, the pattern is clear. A lot of performance, not enough orientations. So really needs acknowledgement and stage without anchoring ideas or doctrine. The activity, in my opinion, is risking and also becoming unsustainable. So, in my perspective, the real danger here is not just about Indonesian credibility abroad, but also about our identity at home. When Indonesia forgets what it once stood for, the Bandung spirit, this principle of bebas aktif, it loses the foundations that gave it legitimacy on the world stage. On other global countries, from Brazil to India to Turkey, are articulating their role with increasing confidence. Indonesia, in my opinion, by contrast, looks busy but without a clear voice. So when I say it, all style, no substance of President Prabowo. What I meant was exactly the gesture are there, but the strategy behind them is not yet visible. That doesn't mean substance cannot be built, but it requires convictions, clarity, and also, of course, the coherence. Otherwise, in my opinion, Indonesia risks being seen as less as a shaper of the global order and more just and more as just a participant. Yeah, for a country with Indonesian history, I think that will be a loss, a big loss for Indonesia.
Thank you. What concrete steps should Indonesia take to maximize the benefits of its BRICS membership?
It's a tough question. That's very practical question, I know as well, and I think it's the right one to ask because symbolism alone will sustain Indonesian position in BRICS. So actually, as I argued earlier, joining BRICS can be useful for Indonesia, but only if we are clear about what we want to achieve. So, in my opinion, there
To
are
diversificate trade, for example,
yeah. So, in my
not
opinion,
to
there
be
are at least
dependent on only on the U.S. market or Japanese.
yeah, so in my opinion, there are at least three book directions where Indonesia should move, and each of them needs a specific step. The first is to align BRICS engagement with our national development priorities. So Indonesia still face enormous challenge in infrastructure, in renewable energy, food security, and digital transformation. So concretely, we should use the NDB not only as a sources of loans, but as a platform to finance green projects, national connectivity, and digital infrastructure. The second step, in my opinion, is for Indonesia to become an agenda center rather than just a participant. One of criticism of BRICS is that is sometimes, like I mentioned before, it's since dominated by China and Russia. But if Indonesia wants to maximize its benefits, it cannot remain passive. For example, Indonesia can push issues like climate change and food security, where we have the credibility, and we are on the world's one of the world's largest producer of palm oil, and also a country highly vulnerable to climate change. So by putting this topic on BRICS table, Indonesia can create space for its own interests while also representing broader global social concerns. And another step is to integrated BRICS with ASEAN. Indonesia has always seen ASEAN as the cornerstone of its diplomacy. So, if BRIC is treated as substitute, it will weaken our regional leadership. But if we position ourselves as the bridge, bringing ASEAN perspective into BRICS and conversely, introducing BRICS resources to Southeast Asia, then I think Indonesia multiplies its influence. That could mean the proposing ASEAN BRICS dialogues on infrastructure or energy transition. So it also reassures our neighbors that Indonesia's entry into BRIC is not about abandoning or neglecting ASEAN, but about giving it new leverage. And Indonesia actually also needs to strengthen institutional capacity at home. One of the reason symbolism often overwhelms substance and is that our foreign policy machinery is under resources. So if we want to break seriously, the MOVA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the relevant ministry must invest in dedicated teams, research support, and clear strategy. That, in my opinion, if every summit or ministerial meeting become a place where Indonesia advances a concrete proposal rather than just attendance. So finally, in my opinion, Indonesia must balance its BRICS roles with its other alignments. Maximizing BRICS is not only about what BRICS can give us, but also about how it strengthens our bargaining power elsewhere. For example, if Indonesia gains development finance through BRICS, we can use that as leverage in negotiation with Western partners, showing that we have alternatives, like it is happening with India and China and also the Russia uh, facing Donald Trump tariff. So to sum up, I think the Congress steps are first align BRICS financing with Indonesian development agenda. Second, set the agenda on issues like climate change, food, digital transformations. Third, connect BRICS with ASEAN to enhance regional partnership. Fourth, build domestic institutional capacity. And fifth, balance BRICS with other partnership.
Partnerships. Well, when we talked about what Indonesia may benefit from BRICS, let's talk about what Indonesia may bring to BRICS. Well, and how it can leverage its position as the world's largest archipelagic state.
If we start from first principles, I think Indonesia's unique value is not only its market size or natural resources. It is our geography and also the kind of political credibility that comes with being the world's larger archipelago goes that sitting between the India and the Pacific Ocean. Actually, that geography is not just a map feature, in my opinion. That it is a strategy functions. The sea lanes that run through Indonesia connect supply chains from the East Asia to South Asia, the Middle East, and also Africa. So if BRICS want to speak seriously about resilience, inclusive, and also sustainable connectivity for the global south, I think Indonesia can make that agenda tangible. So let me be concrete. In my opinion, Indonesia can lead BRICS Maritime Connectivity Initiative that focuses on three practical things. First, harmonizing port digitalization through common data standards, single window customs, and trusted trade mechanism. Second, piloting green shipping corridors that connect a few high traffic or high traffic routes across Malacca, Sunda, Lombok, Makassar straits with verifiable emissions target and NDB big initiative. Then the third, building interoperable logistic insurance that dispute resolutions. So the small and medium exporter in the global south are not priced out by risk premium. So I think these are not slogan. They can be measured in days saved port in a cost per container and also in carbon nautical mile. And also, frankly speaking, the blue economy is where Indonesia can anchor second contribution. We have one of the world's largest mangrove ecosystem and significant blue carbon potential. I think that allows Indonesia to convene a BRICS Blue Carbon Alliance that link restoration projects to credible measurement, reporting, and also verifications, and then to blue bonds issued by NDB. And at the same time, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing also, of course, hurts coastal livelihoods across the global so in the global south. So I think Indonesia can set up BRICS task force that integrates satellite, IIS, and also coastal radar data into a sharp maritime domain awareness platform with a clear privacy and also governance rules. So the point is to defend the food security, not to militarize the sea like the United States. And also, speaking about humanitarian assistance and disaster response will be a third track. You know, archipelago state live with the cyclones, earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcano eruptions. So Indonesia can propose a BRICS hub in eastern Indonesia that prepositions modular supply, standardized relief protocols, and also conduct a regular exercise with civilian agencies. So this keep the focus on public goods, and also it is also demonstrates how BRICS uh, can add value without escalating a security dilemma. And if we can move with relief within 72 hours instead of 10 days, that is substance and optics. So a lot of things like digital layers and maritime logistic, and also uh, like I've mentioned you many times, energy transitions and also critical mineral provides for revenue. So Indonesia's nickel and cobalt are often discussed only in the terms of volume. The more important question, in my opinion, is governance. So, in my opinion, Indonesia can champion a BRICS critical mineral compact that set environmental, labor, and community standard for extraction, of course, and promotes technology transfer in refining and battery recycling. That I think it creates just a transition facility for effective communities. So that avoids a race the bottom turns mineral into long-term industrial capacity. So implementation matters. So Indonesia should appoint a dedicated maritime Sherpa for BRICS, table a pipeline for a bankable project within 6 months, and agree on metrics that public can understand, such as clearance time, accident rates, and also emissions per corridor, and also thoughts of fishery stocks recover. And if results are visible, I think the narrative follows. So if results are invisible, the narrative collapse.
Thank you. Definitely, Indonesia may bring and brings a lot of valuable things to BRICS. But let me ask you one more time, one more question. You mentioned several times about ASEAN, that Indonesia is the part of ASEAN. How do you see Indonesia balancing its traditional leadership role in ASEAN with its new BRICS commitments?
I always say that Indonesia, ASEAN is Indonesian cornerstones, but BRICS open a global platform. Actually, the real opportunity for Indonesia is not to choose one or the other, but to connect them. And there, I think the historical memory of Bandung Conference is essential. When President Lula said at the Rio 2025 BRICS summit that BRIC is the hair of the Bandung spirit. He was not exaggerating, in my opinion. And Bandung in 1955 was about newly independent countries asserting agency beyond Cold War binaries. So today, BRICS claim to do something similar for the global south in a fragmented world. So Indonesia, as one the original architect of Bandung, has both the legitimacy and also the responsibility to bring that to spirit back into the global forum. So, in my opinion, the way to balance ASEAN and BRICS is to anchor our BRICS role in Bandung Principle, independence, equality, and also the cooperation, and then channel it ASEAN concern into that. If we make food security, climate adaptation, and fair development finance central in BRICS, that is exactly what Bandung was about: justice for post-colonial nations. So, by doing so, Indonesia does not abandon ASEAN. Instead, it elevates ASEAN, in my opinion, into the global conversation through BRICS. So, honestly, this is also how Indonesia can recover its voice, because ASEAN alone sometimes feel too cautious, and BRICS alone risks being dominated by few powers. But Bandung gave Indonesia's moral identity. If we can revive that spirit through ASEAN at the regional level, through BRICS at the global level, then I believe Indonesia is not just balancing commitment. Indonesia is renewing its historical role as convener of the global south.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Um, Now let's talk about something else. It will be our last question. You recently visited Beijing. Uh, People in Chinese government often say that China is a country where different cultures and religions may coexist.
Okay.
What do you think about how China treats Muslim minorities? Lots of people want to know the answer to this question and asking this question very frequently. In your opinion, it's precious to hear your point, like as a
Okay.
representative of the biggest Muslim country.
Yeah, this is indeed a sensitive but also very important question. Yeah, for sure. Actually, let me answer based on my recent experience China last week, and also my longer time studying in China for 2 years. So last week I was in Beijing, attended a dialogue at the Chinese Academy of Social Science on the China Initiative. It's about the Global Civilization Initiative. So I especially spoke about how Confucianism, Truth, and Islam can coexist in the Chinese context. So I found the exchange quite constructive because it showed that China is trying to present religion not as a problem, but part of a harmonious framework diversity. Also, I traveled to Urumqi in Xinjiang. uh, One of the most striking experience there was visiting China Islamic Institute. I think it reminded me of Indonesian State Islamic University known as UIN Indonesia, where theology is taught alongside modern subject. But in Xinjiang, students study Islam, not only studying Islam but also civic educations, politics, and national ideology. So the idea is to prepare the students not only as religious leaders but also as citizens who understand their role in society. I think it is different model from Indonesia, where in Indonesia, where civil society like Nadatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah uh, plays a greater role, but it reflects China's own history and priorities. So I should mention I should also mention my years in China, in Shanghai, especially when I study in Shanghai Shatong University, one of the biggest and also the best university in China. During that time, I saw Muslim life as part of the city's everyday diversity. So there are mosques, halal restaurant in every campus, and also the student community. So Muslim practice their faith, went to the prayers, celebrate Ramadan, and live side by side with others. So that my personal experience made me realize that the reality inside China is often more complex than what you hear from outside narrative. So honestly, much of international debate it's about this issue is shaped by Western governance and also Western media, and we know as scholars. that will often operate with double standard when it comes to human rights. They are quickly to highlight problem in countries like China, but remain relatively quite. Oh, sorry. I think yeah. They're quick to highlight problem in country like China, in Russia, but remain relatively quiet about serious issue in their own society or in countries like with other close allies like the Israel. In that sense, the discourse is not always natural. I think it is deeply political. So I think it's important to approach this debate with caution to separate genuine human concern from political agenda. So in my perspective, what China is trying to do is to integrate Islam into its national framework alongside Confucius tradition and also socialist values. Whether this model succeed, I think it will depend on how Muslim communities themselves experience in the long term. But based on what I saw last week and also my live in Shanghai, I would say that China is not trying to erase or dispel the religion. Rather, it is trying to structure it in a way that aligns with its governance model. So this may not look familiar to outsiders, but it is a model that deserve careful study, not just simplified adjustment. So to conclude, I will say yes, the world has questions, and those questions should be discussed. But it is important to recognize that Western government and media do not hold a monopoly defining human rights, and their standards are not always applied consistently in every country. By looking beyond these double standards and by studying the reality on the ground, we can develop more balanced and nuanced understanding how China treats its Muslim community. And in my view, that is far more constructive than repeating politicized narratives in the media, in the Western government and media.
Virdi, this has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on Indonesia's evolving role in global politics and the complexities of BRICS membership. For our viewers who want to follow more on your work and analysis, where they can find you, I know you regularly contribute to several major publications and platforms.
Yeah, I think you can follow my Instagram and also my Twitter or X at Virdika, and also my LinkedIn. It's Virdika. So I will share every article that I wrote.
Perfect. And don't forget to check out Virdi's books, especially his work on Gus Dur, for those interested in Indonesian political history. So thank you again, Virdi, and
It's possible.
thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this conversation about Indonesia's foreign policy and BRICS membership, please like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what other geopolitical topics you would like us to explore. Thanks for watching.